What is Ragus?
Do I get a whole hour? Oh boy, you're in trouble. Oh, I can't see her. Can everybody hear me well enough? I have a pretty big mouth, so you'll see that's a reoccurring theme in my speech, which is awesome. Alrighty. Thank you guys for having me again. So if you've already seen this one time, you either came back because you loved it so much, or you're kicking yourself because you didn't check the spoke and you got stuck with me here again. But as some of you know, I've been working closely with a mentor down in Virginia to prepare myself for a leadership role within Ragus. And that was this last summer. And as of September of last year, I was honored to be appointed as zone ambassador here for 32. Typically, these presentations do run about 45 minutes, so I'll try not to take the whole time. I did work to condense some material just to kind of fit in the time frame. That way we had some room for questions. By this point, I've given just a handful of presentations within the district, but as always, your feedback is appreciated and invaluable in helping me prepare this for future club presentations. And I do also want to make some of you aware that the material you're going to hear today is very unsettling. So this is a trigger warning in advance. I know I'm a silly person, but this is tough and it's dark. So my hope is by the end of this session, you'll not only learn something new, but also feel my urgency and frustration, and hopefully as pissed off as I am about these issues. And lastly, I just want to say, please feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions, because I know as I listen, I have a question, it's in my brain the entire time, and then I don't pay attention because I'm so concentrated on not forgetting my question. So please feel free to interrupt me. I am going to start a little bit with what Rotary action groups are and kind of go into a deeper dive of what Ragus does at a global level, and then I'll narrow it down to what's going on right here in our own yard in Pennsylvania. Oh, clicker. So I do like to start with, the who, the how, and the why. So we'll start here with what is Ragus. Ragus is the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery, and our mission is to connect, empower, and equip Rotarians to engage in their communities, to eradicate all forms of modern slavery and human trafficking, not only locally here, but around the globe as well. And how are we able to help? Back in the early 2000s, Ragus developed something called the CAPE Plan, which is the Community Awareness and Prevention Education Plan. With the CAPE Plan, we lean to empower and equip our members to support local and global projects involving human trafficking. And what this does is it helps connect our like-minded Rotarians to feel moved to take action. Why does this matter? Hopefully I don't have to tell you this. I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer, but freedom is a basic human right. And we believe collectively that we all have some sort of shared responsibility to end modern slavery. And not only that, but modern slavery does hinder education, economic development, and peace. So our members are working together to, more importantly, promote awareness and education, which helps victims be able to come forward and have healing worldwide. So just a quick background about Ragus there. But what are Rotary Action Groups? So I noticed, especially in Monday, a lot of people were unfamiliar with what Rotary Action Groups are. So Rotary Action Group, or RAG, they are independently formed, but they are affiliated with Rotary. So Rotary kind of acts like an umbrella over top, kind of just to give you the coverage and maybe help you get the missing pieces that you're missing from your puzzle. So basically what an action group is, where anybody, so you have your insurance professionals, your bankers, who else do we have in here? Retirees, help me out. Your chambers of commerce people, you get everybody together and you become an expert in a field. So I did lay some papers down on the desk that just kind of gives you an overview of different action groups that are out there. So that can be anything from education, clean water, maternal health, addiction prevention, slavery. There's a lot of stuff in there for anybody to kind of take a look at and see. So basically what Rotary's doing is giving you that support. So helping clubs plan and implement and succeed with projects. And they're offering technical support. So at this point, we know Rotary has avenues for a lot of different areas. So we're helping with organization, helping you find partners, maybe funding, doing community assessments, helping you prepare for district and global grants, things of that nature. And I think the really cool thing about Rotary Action Groups is that anyone's able to join. So maybe you have a spouse or a friend, a business partner, a family member, somebody who's not quite ready to commit to Rotary. They don't know, the ins and outs and what's going on. So I think action groups are a great way for someone to say, like, hey, we have a shared collective interest in this. So they're kind of able to dip their toes in, see what Rotary does, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get new members from this. So that's something that's really cool. And I didn't know what action groups were until I went to RLI, which is the Rotary Learning or Leadership Institute that is held, I think, in October here. So this was, I think, the second year we went. It was during COVID, and nowhere had them in person. They were all virtual. So Dennis and Denise and I decided to travel, where did we go? Like Allentown? Scranton area to attend one in person. And that's where I kind of heard about these. And I was like, wait, I had no idea what this was. And as soon as we left, I remember getting back in the car and I signed up that day on my way home. And that was in 2020. So it's been 4 years. And I've really done nothing up until now. So decided it was time to kind of hop in and get involved. And I think that our district does a really good job of informing you of things that take place. But it can be difficult. There's so much out there for Rotary that we can't cover everything. And I think it's a great push for you, even if you're not interested in a leadership position within the club, just to kind of get out there and see what's going on within the club. So hop in here to CAPE. So we've got community awareness prevents exploitation. So that's part of my job here, being the zone ambassador, is just to get out. Again, I have a big mouth, so I'm using my big mouth to promote awareness. And why is raising awareness so crucial for these victims? So number one, we're preventing victimization. So when you get out and you educate, your law enforcement officers, your healthcare workers, your educators, and you're presenting this information, it helps them to know what path they're falling into and hopefully to stay away from this path. It also empowers victims. The more that we talk about this and raise awareness on what's going on, it gives people that support that they're able to come forward. And it also allows the public and the communities to take action, because you now know what suspicious activity looks like and what this can lead to. And I also think that one thing I didn't know until I started on this journey was the legal importance of this. Has anybody here served on a jury? Okay, I have. Hopefully, if you hate it, you don't. But if you like it, maybe you can get in there. It's fun. I had a great time. It was a nice 3-day trip from work. Very boring, but it is what it is. It's our duty. But it is important to educate jurors because it can help convict more traffickers. A lot of times these victims are brainwashed and they're scared. And this leads to the fact that only 1% of victims are self-reporting. So if you think about that, 1% of victims, these 99% other reportings are coming from you. Coming, again, law enforcement, healthcare workers, education, insurance agents, things of that nature. So just your general public reporting this. And on average, it does take a victim 2.5 years to realize that they're even being trafficked. So educating the general public to see these people as people, and to share compassion and to not pass judgment as prostitutes. And again, I don't know all of you personally. So those that I don't, my full-time gig, I am an underwriter for an insurance company. And part of my job is to assess person or assets and decide the terms and conditions of those policies. So my brain kind of works in a way of like stats, graphs, statistics, things of that nature. And once I see something and I learn it, it's very difficult for me to unlearn it. So I just wanted to share some troubling statistics with you that go on globally here. So right now there are 50 million people enslaved in modern slavery today. And if you think about that, that's more slaves today than there were 150 years ago during the peak of slave trading before the Civil War. $150 billion industry, so it's the second largest illegal enterprise. Does anybody know what that's next to?
Drugs.
You got it. Drug trafficking, number one. Human trafficking and slave trade will overtake that any day now. And part of that, what's crazy about this, if you think it's a $150 billion industry, but slaves are cheaper today than they were 150 years ago during the same time frame with inflation. So if you had, and a lot of this slave labor back then was obviously forced. So not necessarily human trafficking or sex trafficking, but a different type of slave labor. Would cost you $40,000 to purchase a slave off the Ivory Coast, and that's in today's dollars. And right now, the average price of a slave is $90. So it's crazy if you think about that, and it's a $1 billion industry. Very troubling. And I just want to be transparent that both men and women can both be victims of trafficking, but I'm focusing on majority. Majority is women. 71%. So all of you have, wives, daughters, mothers. So it's very troubling. Funding for this, again, just really shows you what the government's focused on. But the government has only spent $370 million since 2001. And I say only because nonprofits and private donors are spending $350 million annually. So just kind of gives you an idea of what's truly important here. Alrighty, so jumping into different types. So what is modern slavery? So I'm going to actually break these down a little bit. This was some feedback that I had received from my last 2 or 3 presentations. I focus on human trafficking for the most part, but I'll just give you an idea. So most common today is debt bondage, and it's forced labor at this point. They're tricked to working for little or no pay, and they have no control over debt. And again, this goes back 150 years, still the largest form. The issue with domestic servitude is that it's live-in help a lot of times from different countries. And if you think about it, the environment which they're in, so someone's home, a personal business, that type of thing, it's more conducive to exploitation because authorities are not able to easily inspect your home as they can a larger company. So these are a little bit tricky, but that is still a huge portion. I'll take a little bit of chunk here with child marriage. Great resource for this is unchained@last.org. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. If you had the 2018, the October version of our magazine, there was a great article in there. She was actually the cover of Escaping Child Marriage. So if you have that issue, dig it out. It's a great 5-6 page article. But child marriage is still a problem in the United States. Couple facts about that: between 2018, 300,000 minors were married in the United States, and a few of them were younger than 10. So I'm just going to skip forward here, but here's hopefully you can see a graphic of what states and how many marriages were held from 2000 to 2018. And at this point, a lot of these marriages really bring no benefit to anybody, except a lot of times rapists. At this point, a teen couple that's pregnant, they're easily able to co-parent outside of marriage, as opposed to turning 18. And children that are in abusive home deserve options rather than getting sucked into a contractual sexual relationship. So right now, child marriage is only legal in 37 states. And luckily, we've got Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Maine, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Vermont that have all set minimum age requirement to 18 and have eliminated any exceptions. So that's definitely a move in the right direction. And mind-blowing, this takes on average 7 years of legislation to set the age to 18, which it's incredible. I don't understand it. Again, I guess it just shows you where our resources are. Child soldiering, again, not so popular here, but third world countries, this is a very huge issue. And despite children being the least cause of the violent outbreaks, a lot of them get sucked into this, which is unfortunate. Not only are they involved in direct combat, but also supporting roles. So a lot of them are trafficked and pushed into situations to become cooks, cleaners, porters, spies, a whole number of things. Again, very sick, and there's no childhood there. So very sad. Organ trafficking, right now $1.7 billion industry. This would be a lot higher. However, thank God, this needs super quality and access to resources to perform, obviously, but is a huge problem. A lot of times we have what they call transplant tourism, where someone who is of wealth will travel to a different country and use funds to purchase organs illegally. And that does happen over more so in the Middle East than obviously here in the U.S., but it is an issue. On average, I believe there's about 150,000 transplants done each year, and that's less than 10% of what's needed. So this is a very hefty market as well. And lastly, with the last piece of the pie being the sex trafficking, again, this is what I feel called to do, so it's what I will be focusing most of my time on with my journey here with Ragus. And I think that while other traffickings exist, sex trafficking and human trafficking is what I feel called to do. Due to the complexity of this, it's just something that you just can't wrap your head around how crazy this is. So we'll hop back in here more to vulnerable populations. So 1 in 5 children or teenagers will be approached by a trafficker online. On average, 1 in 3 teens are targeted by exploiters within 2 days of being homeless. Hits home for me. I help with Echoes. I've been helping there for 7 or 8 years now over the winter, and we see some trafficking cases come through there, and it is devastating. I don't have any other words for it other than that. So just imagine all these teens that are being approached within 2 days of being homeless. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 12 boys will be sexually abused by age 18. And the average entry into prostitution is now 12 to 14 years of age. A lot of times these victims have their identification stripped, and they're kind of abused and controlled. They don't know who they are. Threats are being made against their family. They've been beaten, they've been drugged, and many of them forced to serve up to 20 men a day. And the average lifespan of a victim that is forced into human trafficking is 7 years. So if you enter at 12, add 7 years to that, you're dead by 18. Very short life, not a long life, but yet a very long life of torment, struggle, and pain. So moving on here, again, like I said, I want to be transparent. Men and women can both be victims. Men and women can both also be purchasers. So Amelia Stansel is the district governor that I've been working with in Virginia. She's chair of Ragus and kind of been my mentor at this point. They came together and they had a multi-county training where they trained local law enforcement officers and school resource officers, as well as EMS workers, anybody who's out active in the field, and kind of, what to look for, that type of thing. And she was actually was able to sit down with a retired FBI agent. She's like, hey, what's our average person look like? So this is disturbing. But they're called Johns. So I'm sorry, do we have Johns in here? We do. Sorry. They skipped Joe this time and gave it to John. Yeah. So that's what a buyer's called here in trafficking. So I made Monday stand up. I'm not going to make you guys stand up, but just to give you an average demographic of what our average person looks like. They're between 35 and 45 years old. They're white, employed, married, and most attend religious services once to twice a month. So just to give you an idea, we all know someone like that. We all are someone like that. So it really, there's no bias here. It's crazy. And I have some facts that I didn't have last time. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any updated, but this is from the fiscal year of 2020. In the U.S. District Court, there was 1,070 defendants that were charged in human trafficking offenses. And these are some statistics from that. 91% that were charged were male, 58% were white, 20% were black, 18% Hispanic, 95% were U.S. citizens, and 71% had no prior convictions. So relatively clean slate. Again, there's no bias here, no demographic. Wild. So while we looked at a global level, I do want to kind of focus on what is going on here in Pennsylvania. So as you can see, we've got quite a high concentration, especially here, in our area. Does anybody know why we're a hot spot for this at this point? Highway access. We've got access to ports and waterways, as well as airports. So we're not really in a great position. In 2020, Pennsylvania was the 12th highest in human trafficking cases. And this is right here in the U.S. 2021, Pennsylvania was 9th. And in 2022, Pennsylvania was 8th. So I do have some data here. We had 315 victims that were identified. 192 trafficking cases total. So 85 were sex trafficking. We've got 10 at labor and then 4 at a combination. So if you take those tips, that's about 3 a day, which it's a lot. It seems like a lot. And a lot of times, something I do want to make clear is that these are the victims know their trafficker 9 times out of 10. It's somebody that you know. You're not just going to get picked. I mean, you might get picked off the corner when you're walking down the street, but very rare that happens. These are all people that have built trust and things of those nature. So how does trafficking take place? There's really 4 things that have to happen. Grooming is done, luring, coercion, and exploitation, as well as manipulation. And so these are just some of the common signs of trafficking. If we have anybody in here who has law enforcement background, education, healthcare, or if you had teenagers, a lot of these signs are very similar. Unexplained money. We've got new friends, isolation, unexplained tattoos, cuts, bruises. These are all signs. A lot of times we have unexpected absences. So these are some dead giveaways here that something is going on. So what do you do if you do suspect something that is going on? Again, this is one where I've had to take a step back. If I see an injustice, I will speak up. Again, I have a very big mouth. I can't control it. I can't help it. So I did have to take a step back here when I learned this information and just know that, you cannot be a hero. Trafficking is bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's clearly bigger than the U.S. in general. This is a global issue. So you do not want to approach anyone ever, especially if the trafficker is present. If you suspect something's going on, just kind of take as much information as you can, write it down. If you can get pictures, things of that nature, and call 911, obviously, right away. There are also now, in addition to the human trafficking line, there's also a text tip line that is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Again, that can be completely anonymous, but it is something that you might want to put in your phone. Lancaster, PA, unfortunately, is just not a great area for this. We've all seen the news articles, and the data to back it up is staggering. And lastly, how to get involved. So there's some great benefits if you do decide to join Ragus. You get access to our quarterly newsletter. You're able to go in and kind of see what other projects other districts are working on, which is really cool. I could save that for a different presentation of things that I've been looking at, but I think we're missing a huge chunk here with the college for some partnership there, especially, again, working with Echoes and the social work talent that we have at the college with the college students is a big miss. So we've got plenty of ideas from that. And there's also an area for you to connect with other members. Website, ragus.online. Kate Plan's on there. Again, you'll be able to see what everybody else is working on. Lots of good tools on there. There's curriculum. There's a nice compilation of human trafficking laws. So you can look locally. You can look what's going on in other states as well as worldwide. And other clubs, past, district, and present pledges on there, which is really cool. So, how am I on time? Made perfect time. We're doing good. Just wanted to say thank you guys again for having me. I hope that today gave you some insight to what's going on around the world and hopefully maybe inspired you to explore a bigger picture of Rotary. And I would hope that you guys would all feel encouraged to get involved somewhere that you feel called to, something that makes you motivated to contribute. I just think overall that makes the best meaningful experience and what Rotary has to offer. So thank you. Any questions before I? Yeah.
Well, within, I've never seen anything in my travels in here.
Mm-hmm.
I've never witnessed anything that I would say, uh-oh, I got to call 911. But several years ago, the people at Hope Within came to me since I'm on the same property and everything and said, we've got a little bit of a problem in this area. And it's all women that work in there for the most part. There's a couple male doctors that are in and out. And they said, we need a way to get a message out if there's a problem in the building for this, sex trafficking and that kind of stuff. So they just come up with this thing that if they send me a text that says certain things, that I know that that's what the problem is, and then I'm the one calling 911 because they're afraid to do it in the building.
Yeah.
You know, so that brought it home for me that it's right here in my parking lot. You know, and I know you've probably seen it at Echoes, but around this town, have we had arrests? Have we had, like, how close is it?
Oh, yeah. If you're interested, can send you an article, but there is actually a sting arrest right here. I guess it would technically fall into Lancaster County Court back in 2022 or 23. There was 14 people that were arrested. There was a gentleman from Maytown, Marietta in there, another couple local gentlemen, and as far south as I think South Carolina. Actually was just talking with someone at MUDUC about that 2 weeks ago. So I do have that article, but yeah, that's how close it hits home here.
I have I got a question about why don't we have an army of fake Johns to try to liberate these kids.
Yeah.
But see how it hits home. If you ever had a direct message sent to you, or a text message said, "Hey, did you text me?" or something like that, and somebody drops into your social media direct messages and is a very attractive avatar. These are usually labor trafficked human beings that are actually trying to solicit you for money. It's called pig butchery. And they're usually in Malaysia or Cambodia in these camps. They're lured there with the promise of a job, and then they're labor trafficked and they're forced to defraud us of our money. So if you've ever gotten these weird things from these attractive avatars, like, hey, you know, that was a really nice post of yours. And you're like, wow, she really likes me. It's probably some dude from China that's being labor trafficked in these Cambodian.
A lot of this now is coming through as text messages, and they're targeting kids. That's what they're used for.
Yeah. Now back to my, why don't we have an army of fake Johns liberating these kids?
I don't know.
Is it dangerous for somebody?
It's very dangerous.
And then the traffic person may not even want to be liberated, right?
That's also true. Again, due to brainwashing, but you have to think a lot of times they're holding. I mean, they're very dangerous. They're holding your family at this point. So a lot of times they're thinking if they speak up or they try to ask for help, that their family is going to be attacked as well.
So, how are these people getting into this country from other countries?
Well, I don't know if you heard the statistic, but 95% of them are U.S. citizens. So they're people that are already living here, which it's very, again, this is that thing that it's very complex and I don't know how to understand it. We're doing this here. I mean, it is a bigger problem in other parts of the world, but it's a big problem here as well. And our citizens are partaking in this for money that essentially, yes, it's a large industry, but we're talking $90. We're talking $100. Like, what does anybody have to gain out of this? I think what it comes down to is people are sick in the brain and clearly have an issue, especially if you look what's going on right now with, I'm sure you've all seen the music stars that have been named in public. I don't want to get into it, but yeah. So.
And just a comment. So, Alyssa handed out a sheet on all the tables of the different Rotary action groups. And as she said, you don't have to be a Rotarian to join one. So if there's one of these action groups that appeals to you, or that you think might appeal to a non-Rotarian, please share it, with them. And the more people that are involved, the better for all of us.
Yeah. Yes.
So I retired from the probation pretrial office federally. So for 23 years, I worked close with officers, and they supervise sex offenders and all kind of things. And also worked with the FBI because I was an IT person to help them gain access to different things on occasion. And I can tell you, it is way bigger than you think it is. It is very disturbing. And I never wanted to be involved with it, but sometimes I had to just to get access to things. And it was always a mindset I'm helping, and it was very disturbing. And I'm just telling you, it's way bigger than you think it is. Way bigger. And it's here locally. We were Middle District, so from this area all the way up to Scranton, over to New Jersey, that was our area, and it's disturbing.
I think too, a lot of it comes down to everybody's like, well, why is this information so closed down? Why don't we know what's going on? A lot of keeping this under wraps by law enforcement, again, is due to safety of the victims. So they have an idea of what's going on, where it's taking place, that type of thing. But the more information you let out, the more dangerous it becomes to somebody else. So we have the information, it's out there. It's just a matter of how do we tackle it. Yeah, so I have ideas. I spoke earlier, I guess at the end of last month, and a gentleman from the Hempfield area, I thought this was a great idea. Didn't even think about it, but he's a retired truck driver, and he thinks it would be great to have a coalition where these truck drivers are trained, especially long haul. They see a lot of this in and out at truck stops, which we have quite a few. So lots of good ideas, but just how to get the right people in the right places and get something going. So, yeah.
Question about your role. District Ambassador for 732. Where is 732? How large is that?
It's pretty large. It goes up to Maine and the whole way down, I believe, to North Carolina. Right now, they're looking at having somebody in each state, depending on the state size too. So I do have a partner that's in the Pittsburgh area that's working on like the western half. So I'm hoping I don't have to make too many far travels, but hey. Okay. Anybody else?
And listen, and your company is very supportive
Yes.
of your efforts here.
Yes. So my not my direct supervisor, my supervisor's supervisor is actually involved in her Rotary up in Presque Isle, Maine. So I have visited with them, and hopefully we'll be heading up there in the first week of February. So I'd love to give a presentation to them. She's past president up there, and looking forward to hopefully visiting our club next time they're down here. So, all right, yeah.
Local educational organizations pretty much up to date on this kind of thing?
I don't know the answer to that. I know, like I said, there's a lot of training involved in the law enforcement level. I'd love to know what goes on at the schools, if there's any training for that. I have talked to a couple educators in the Donegal School District area who feel that this information would be beneficial for them. But that's about as much as I know on that at this point. Alrighty, thank you. My water.
For enlightening us. I forgot to mention the change jars, so whip out your $100 bills, put them in the change jars, and have a great weekend.